Welcome, welcome in, everyone. And thank you for joining us today for the National Technical Assistance Center's Money, 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 financial literacy your students can take to the bank. So we're here because, frankly, too many young people reach adulthood without a real practical foundation in personal finance, right? And then they have to learn the hard way through really expensive mistakes, which I'm sure none of us have ever made. In 21st CCLC programs, we have a really unique opportunity to change that story, though, right? We can give students and honestly, families a safe place to practice real world decision making, the earning, spending, credit and debit, insuring, saving and investing, all of those things, right? So today's session is designed to be really practical. So we're going to model some activities that you can use with students across grade levels. And we're also going to focus on quality, right? How to set goals, align academics, vet external resources. Please, at any point, feel free to participate in the chat. I'm going to call out some interaction moments pretty often, but if there's anything that pops into your mind that you'd like to say or discuss or just share, please go ahead and share it. Our goal today is that you leave with sort of a vault of ideas that you can implement really quickly and you can adapt to your local context, which is the really important part, right? So, let's talk a little bit about who we are. We are the National Technical Assistance Center. So we are your partner for technical assistance, support, training, capacity building for any 21st CCLC program. And we deliver all of those services to you for the low cost of free 99. We are a 100% free resource to you, and everything we develop is free. The training we come out and give you is free. So please feel free to reach out to us at any point with any concerns. And we'll talk about how you can do that at the end of our presentation. So, a little bit about who the people are that are going to be the talking heads for you today. I am Chaz Summers. I am a TA liaison here with the National Technical Assistance Center. I come from a background of English and special education. I taught both for over a decade. And during that time, I also worked my way up the ranks of out of school time programs, right? I started as a volunteer in high school, frontline staff in college, and then slowly, hey, you're good at this. Can you do this thing now? Hey, can you also do this thing now? Hey, can you be a site coordinator? Hey, can you be a program director, right? And so I understand what the challenges are at the different levels, and I'm really excited to talk about those with you guys. So with me today is John Hulse and Emily Rice. So I'll let John and Emily just say a little bit about themselves real quick.
Hi. It's great to be with you. I'm happy to be a co-host. I most recently was the State Education Association 21st Century Community Learning Center's lead there. And I have a whole history of working in out-of-time space and just loving it from the time I was a participant. So today's topic on financial literacy, boy, I wish I had this myself back in the day. But there's some really fun things that we're going to get to talk about in just a little bit, so I won't take up any more time. Emily, you want to say a quick hello?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Emily from the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Tampa Bay. I am so happy to be here and I am ready to take notes so I can take things back as well to all of our 21st sites. So thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All
Great.
right, let's go ahead and jump in then. So, our objectives for today, the things that we're going to do, right? We're going to define 5 key concepts of financial literacy and their importance in empowering students. We'll go over each one of those concepts and talk about how it feeds into the larger fabric of financial literacy. And then we're going to talk about how we can apply evaluating financial literacy resources checklists. So one of the myriad of resources that we have here at the NTAC that supports not just financial literacy, but academics across the board. And we're going to talk about how we specifically use that to address making sure that we're doing really intentional and impactful financial literacy education. Then we're going to talk about how once we know the targets that we want to hit, how we can meaningfully integrate those things into activities that we might already be doing, right? Because it's not about adding a financial literacy block, it's about infusing financial literacy into all the stuff that we do in the day to day. And then we're going to design a high energy student-centered learning experience using a fun game that we call Learning Bingo. And we'll talk about some really cool age-appropriate activities and ideas. So that's a lot. So let's jump in. So why financial literacy, right? Let's ground ourselves in the the why of it, right? Financial literacy isn't just a set of facts and figures and numbers, right? It's a protective factor for people. Youth are surrounded by messages, bombarded daily with messages telling them what to buy, like buy it now, subscribe now, limited time offer, blah, blah, blah. It's constantly in their face in social media, TV, all types of things. They're also constantly getting this hustle culture message, right? Where you need to make quick money, make money, make money. That's the important thing, right? Without foundational knowledge and habits of financial education, they can fall into traps like predatory offers, which can easily lead to some unhealthy debt. Can also get caught up in a get rich quick scheme, right? A lot of adults look back and say, "Man, I wish I had learned this earlier." I was actually with a group of friends just last night, and they were talking about how they didn't get this education when they were younger, and wishing that students had gotten it now. And I had to stop them and say, "Hey, look, fear not, because there's so many things that we're doing for the youth now to infuse financial literacy, in every aspect of what they're doing." So our out of school time programs have a unique opportunity to create that earlier learning, right? So we're not even just trying to like address it in high school when we're teaching them how to balance a checkbook, right? We can do some engaging activities, we can have some conversations and some real practice in our out of school time space because we have the flexibility to do so. Out of school time is also a space where we can teach decision making without any sort of judgment. Students can make a choice, they can see what their consequences are, and then they can pause, rethink, and reflect on what they did without it being something that, is a stumbling block for them forever because it's a mistake they made in the real world. So today, all that is to say that today is more than just budgeting lessons. We're going to focus on our five core concepts and on some program quality. And we're going to talk about how we set some really clear outcomes for the financial literacy objectives that we have, how we integrate them across different disciplines. So talk about like, infusing them into the things that we're already doing, and then how we can evaluate some of the materials that are out there to make sure that we're not using, outdated or biased financial literacy resources. Quite frankly, if you leave with one new activity or idea, or just one stronger goal statement, that's real progress that you can use as a building block across your sites. So,
Cool. So,
yeah, go
as
ahead, John.
Chaz said, as Chaz said, you know, we're going to be giving you lots of tools today, and it's not just for high schoolers. This is for our young people too, our people who you don't. So financial literacy is in so much that you don't even think about. So out of school time, we're the place where we can do a lot of things. It's an ideal space for this financial literacy. First, students can role play decisions, compare options, and reflect on trade-offs in low stakes environments. If you think of some of the games that we play, old school games, right? There's some financial stuff going on there. Everyone wants to get all the money. Second, students don't have to wait for a textbook unit. So it doesn't have to come up in math class or, economic class, social studies, whatever. They can explore money choices that matter to them now, how they're going to save for something relevant, and understanding maybe a paycheck, deciding how to spend limited funds. We've all had to go to the candy store with only, it was a quarter back then, but whatever, and then what are you going to buy? Evaluating online offers. An example of both these points is in the pictures here. So we visited a program in North Carolina where students earn bucks for positive behavior that they could use in the program store. They learned that they could buy something each week, or they could save for something bigger. They could even collaborate and contribute to something for their age group, such as popcorn and a movie party. So those difficult decisions about immediate gratification, or can I wait, and save up for something a little bigger? And then also we can help our families, right? Many families want support around financial topics, but they might feel judged or overwhelmed or just don't know quite the best ways to do things. So if we come from a no penalty kind of framework, let's build skills together. You're not doing it wrong. We're just going to learn other ways to do it. It's also a partnership or opportunity for programs. So, the daytime school programs are going to appreciate when the out of school time program reinforces the math reasoning, the reading comprehension, and the problem solving skills. So we touch on so much here with financial literacy. It's just a wealth of opportunities. And it's life connected, right? We're all in this life and we all need to make ends meet. And so that increases student engagement. Students want to figure out how are they going to be able to make money or save money or, become an entrepreneur. So as we've said, our goal today is to help you deliver that relevance with quality and consistency across sites. And, your staff don't have to be experts and have a financial degree. These activities that we're going to show are ones that everyone can learn to teach and just have fun doing. And so we're going to start with your expertise. So we have a little chat question here. Can you put in the chat what you think the biggest barrier that youth face in learning and using financial literacy skills? Maybe you're thinking of limited opportunities to practice. Maybe there's a lot of financial jargon out there. There's a lot of social pressure. Lots of social online things include financial things now. There's misinformation online. There's stress. Access to banking tools. So if you can put in the chat some of your things that you think are the biggest barriers. Okay, here some come in. Social pressure, lack of relevant or helpful materials, limited opportunity and guidance. Yeah, it's environment, access, experience, those things. Not a huge push to educate students about finances until recently. No actual specific instruction. Finding relevant material that speaks the way money is handled now with the cyber world. Yeah, it's not just the play school cash register, right, where you push the button and the money pops out, which is about what we had, way back when. Being able to distinguish what's a scam. So we want activities that are empowering, that are stigma-free, and that are practical. Not having enough information what's allowed and not allowed in after-school programming, to sustain programming. So yeah, so I don't know that we're going to be able to give you ideas on how to make your program make money, but we're going to give you some ideas on how your young people can take some skills and have simulations and that sort of thing. And like I said earlier, adopting a supportive language about let's explore options, let's practice, let's see how to spot those risky situations. And in a safe environment to just talk about those things that might come up. We're going to talk about 5 concepts that might help you identify where your program might begin. Building confidence and consistency. So those 5 concepts are earning, spending, credit and debt, insuring, saving and investing. So we're going to talk about more of those topics. And it looks like a lot of the text responses have been kind of general on just maybe earning and spending, perhaps. Did you see others there, Chaz?
Yeah, I think when it comes to scams, I think, that's a lot of what students can run into especially early in their financial career. I think back to just being on college campuses, like at college, right? And going to classes, and there are just like stalls of credit card companies that are set up along
Right.
like the main concourse, just hoping to get you to sign up for a credit card, right? And if you don't know what those things are, if you don't understand how credit works, that's a huge deal. Where that's you just be like, oh, okay, so I can just like use this and it's like free money. No, no, hold on, hold on. So yeah, it's tricky, and there's a myriad of different struggles when it comes to addressing financial literacy, which we'll talk about how to speak to some of those. I did also want to shout out Ann Bowers here. Like I understand that it can be really tricky to define how we use earned income and things like that. So in a 21st CCLC program, but that's why we're here as a National Technical Assistance Center. So if you have questions around that, please reach out to us via our website and we'll show you how to do that at the end. But we're glad to clarify those things for you. We don't want anything when it comes to 21st CCLC to be a mystery, and that's why we're here as a free resource to you to support those things.
Right. Yeah, that earned income that gets a little bit tricky, but as Chaz says, we will help you with that. So if you have thought about the barriers that we've talked about, if you've kind of honed in your mind at least on the biggest barrier that you think you have in your program, we're going to try to use that concept that you're thinking about to focus on how to best address your students' needs and what their most common challenges might be, and build activities that reduce those barriers over time. Yeah, so Shelley says that it's kind of tough to understand when you're, talking about things until you actually have a dollar in your hand and you lose it, right? That's a big learning thing too, right? But maybe it's classroom dollars that you lose, instead of real dollars, and it's not going to break the bank. So we have a financial literacy toolkit, which this is one of the big things that we're going to be talking about today. There's several big things, but this is one that the 21st Century NTAC has developed, and we're going to reference this a lot. And there's a bunch of different things in this toolkit. I'm just going to give you a bird's eye view of some of them right now, and then we're going to dig a little deeper. So there are key financial literacy messages that frame conversations and avoid common pitfalls like overspending and scams. We're going to demo a financial literacy bingo, which includes cue cards and boards for a fun to use activity. And then for planning and high quality, we're going to use using academic standards to incorporate financial literacy to spark integration ideas. And there's also evaluating financial literacy resources, which will guide goal setting and vet materials across content, utility, quality, and efficacy. And not to stop there, we also have financial literacy resources for OST programs to identify some reputable external resources, because it's hard because there are some scams out there even for the people that are trying to learn. And then the Financial Literacy Partnership Planner is designed to help you structure some community partnership opportunities that you might be able to develop. And then finally, we have a sample financial literacy social media campaign that's going to help you reach families and involve students in awareness building. So we hope we've hit a bunch of prongs that you can take a few to start with, and everything that you see links back to the toolkit that Dave has put online, the onlineflippingbook.com. That link there, it would be great if you make note of that, because we're going to be using that a lot. So the first thing we're looking at is these 5 concepts of financial literacy. And I've kind of referenced those earlier, but now you can see them in black and white. They're the backbone of the toolkit and the backbone of today's session. And so we're thinking about them as buckets. What bucket are we putting different topics in as we try to dissect financial literacy and what's happening in real life scenarios? So if we try to talk about real life, how are we making sure that we're addressing all of these buckets at some point. So earning is about income, career pathways, and the idea that pay can include benefits. Spending focuses on needs versus wants, budgeting, and trade-offs. I think it's talking to me. Credit and debt covers borrowing, repayment, interest, and long-term impacts. Insuring is about protection and includes formal insurance as well as practical protections like safeguarding identity and safeguarding records and avoiding scams. And then the last bucket is saving and investing, which emphasizes habits like paying yourself first, starting early, and understanding risk. So the key financial literacy messages tool in the toolkit provides ready-made talking points for each concept. And these are messages that you might want to share with your staff and then share them with your young people and their families in communication. So that is a good resource there. So let's talk for a second. We're going to do a poll here. So we're going to do this quick quiz, and the scores are not counted, but take a look at this and try to identify which category aligns with each of these scenarios. We have a few scenarios here. We have 4 scenarios. And which topic, which bucket is each of these scenarios best showing? And sometimes there's more than one answer, but we're just going to take your best answer here. You might have to scroll down to get to all 4 questions, but scroll on down and give us your best category for what these scenarios encounter, and we'll go over what your responses are. The answers are coming in.
Yeah, I like that we're taking a moment to think too. Yeah, because you read this scenario and you're like, oh, this will be easy. And you're like, wait, hold on. This could be maybe this. It could also be
Right.
this.
Yep. About a third of you is completed. So take your time. Don't be shy.
Looks like the answers have slowed down, John. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Whoop. Of course, after I said that, a few more are coming in. So let's give it another couple seconds.
Okay, another half a minute maybe.
All right, thank you for answering. Here we go. This is sharing results.
Okay, so let's see the results here. Okay, so number 1, the student wants a new gaming headset but only has half the money. And it looks like we have two that have been selected very highly: spending and saving and investing. And guess what? That's what our people thought too when we designed the question. So yeah, it's, how are they going to spend? They have to wait to spend, but they also have to save up for that one. So that's cool. Number 2, a team compares cost of electrician program versus electrical engineering. this is interesting. There's 4 that are almost all the same percentage of response here. Now, the answer key says earning, but I'm sure that you guys can make the case for why you chose what you did choose. So here, someone who's trying to decide their career path, is an electrician going to make more than an electrical engineer? Is it going to cost more to learn those skills? There's a lot that have to go into it. So there is some spending and learning, and then, how you're going to be able to save some money. So I can see all those answers there as long as you can justify it. A teen gets their first, yes.
I was just gonna say, I think it's interesting because I think there's even a case for credit and debit in that one, where, I mean, if I'm going into an electrical engineering program, do I have to go into debt to get that electrical engineering
Mm,
degree? And then, like, how long will it take me to pay off that debt, as opposed to the electrician program, which probably is something that I might be able to pay for, little by little as I go. So yeah,
right.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great viewpoint too. So, all this is so interconnected that the buckets help us with making sure we're teaching all aspects of financial literacy, but they're so intertwined that when you touch one, you touch a bunch of them.
Mhm.
Okay, number 3, a teen gets their first paycheck and is surprised by how much was taken out for taxes. I'm surprised even with the last check I get. So,
Yeah.
so earning is the big one there, and yes, I think the more obvious one is earning, but there is something to be said for spending or even protecting. They talk about paying yourself first, but also paying
Mhm.
into the saving for the future. So yeah, that's one there. And then a teen is offered a store credit card with a discount on today's purchase, and yeah, that's kind of credit, right? It's in the thing. Credit and debit, debt. How you have to deal with things once you start those credit card things. Any final thoughts there? I think we're good. So let's go on to another concept.
So now we're going to talk about how we deliver these key financial literacy messages, right? In a way that is impactful and is digestible for our youth. So the key financial literacy messages tool is a great way to do that because it gives you talking points, for different venues to start these conversations. Um, so the tool's guidance is really explicit. It includes messages for student and family activities. It gives you communications like social media posts and talks about how you can use them to spark really meaningful conversations, which are going to help avoid some of the common pitfalls that we've been talking about, right? Like overspending, unnecessary debt, get rich quick schemes, right? This is really valuable for program leaders because it gives you consistent language that you can use for all of your staff across all of your sites. Instead of each facilitator improvising some financial advice, right, based on like what their lived experience is, you have this gives you a shared language that's educational, but also protective of your youth, right? So in practice, you might do something like you pick one of these messages a week and then you embed it into multiple moments, right? It's not, the concept isn't we take one of these messages and we talk about it one time during the week and then that's it. No, we think about how we bake it in to all of the stuff that we're doing throughout the course of the week so that it's a message that you're hearing multiple times. So it might be that you're talking about it in your opening circle. It might be that there's also a game that we've developed for this week around that topic. There might also be sort of like a reflection prompt. Could be a family message that we have, posted up for when kids are getting signed out. A really good thing for these, or like a summative activity, is I like doing posters. So like, informative posters like, oh, hey, look, this is what debt is, things like that. You've just learned this bright, shiny new thing. Now let's show it to everybody. this repetition, like baking it into multiple moments, is how habits really form, right? The messages also really help you address your earlier barrier themes. So, like if youth are facing a lot of misinformation around finances, um, the messages provide a real anchor of truth for what's actually real, as opposed to what you might be seeing. If youth face social pressure or something like that, these messages normalize the trade-offs and talk about living below your means. Because, yeah, you might see all these people on social media, they're driving flashy cars, they're staying in all these beautiful places, but they're living beyond their means, and you don't see that part of it. And so that's what we need to impart with our youth, right? Um, for example, if youth are facing scams, right? These messages also include practical rules for, hey, don't go clicking unknown links. Um, don't pay ahead of time for things like an opportunity like a scholarship or a job or something like that. Um, we'll talk about in the next slide what the routine looks like, but right now, let's just look and walk through what some of the messaging looks like for each of these key points, right? So for credit and debt, we have things like, borrowing money is often essential for major purchases. Like, unfortunately, in the world that we live in, yes, you might have to borrow money, but there's such a thing as healthy debt and unhealthy debt. Um, Taking on some debt helps you establish a credit history. There are people that they're so scared of the concept of credit and debt that they shy away from all type of credit in general. And so then when they go to try to get a car or a house or something like that, they don't have a credit history. And so that can hurt you. And then you want to talk about avoiding actions that damage your credit, right? Not paying on time, having too many credit cards, maxing them out, missing those payments, things like that. When we talk about protecting and insuring, this is, I feel like, sometimes a harder concept to impart on our youth unless we make it very real and practical for them. Because insurance sounds crazy. But if I say, what happens if you broke your switch and like, could you replace it? That is real and practical to them, right? So we're talking about protecting what's most valuable. For us, it's a home, it's a car, it's our family, our health insurance, stuff like that. Making it real for our youth means framing it in a way that you're protecting what's most valuable for them, right? And then also staying alert for scams, having sort of a high enough level of financial literacy where you're picking up on places where people are trying to deceive you, something that seems too good to be true, something like that, right? An unsolicited message. It's like, oh, hey, girl, I haven't talked in a while, but I have this really cool opportunity to make some money. No, don't get involved in the pyramid scheme, right? That kind of thing. So, when it comes to saving and investing, right, the first principle, the one that got imparted in me and drilled into my head as a kid, was you pay yourself first, right? We talk about making sure that we're building up our savings for a rainy day, even if that's just it getting automatically deducted, because sometimes that's what I need. Because if I didn't have that, sometimes I wouldn't be doing the saving that I should be doing. Um, and then, of course, the best time to start saving was yesterday. The next best time to start saving and investing is today, right? Don't be scared because you feel like you're behind the ball. Just start now and do as much as you can. And of course, we need to talk about the risk of some investments, right? With the rise of things like cryptocurrency, it's very easy to look at those things as safe, get rich quick things, right? But sometimes these are very risky investments. The ones that pay off big are the ones that can cost you big. Um, and then focus on what's within your control. Depending on like the other external focus or factors that you have in your life, two people can be making the very same amount of money, but they can have very different financial circumstances because of, their spending habits. One might be living beyond their means, one might be living below their means. And then there are things that are beyond your control, right? Things like economic recession, getting an inheritance. Think about the chance cards in Monopoly, those kinds of things. Now, when we're talking about earning, right, there's more than one way to earn income, right? Um, it's very easy when you haven't had a job before to think the only financial benefit that I get from my job is just the paycheck. But turns out when you're considering a job, you also want to look beyond it. You want to think about things, the ancillary benefits, tuition reimbursement, health insurance that's paid for by your company, paid vacation days, right? Or even opportunities for advancement, because that can also go back to the saving, investing, right? Because we're thinking ahead to think about how we can, the opportunities for advancement and how we can make more money. And then we also want to make sure that we're not confusing enough for too little, because especially nowadays with social media, there's a constant thirst for more, right? You constantly want to keep up with the Joneses and get the cool new thing. But you want to make sure that you're not chasing money to the point where you're following a career path you don't like, you're doing something unethical or illegal, or you're just not taking the time to enjoy what you already have, right? So those are the key messages that are addressed in this tool that we're talking about. And the tool gives you some very easy ways to impart that message onto your youth, regardless of what age group you're dealing with. So let's talk about spending real quick, right? We also want to learn how to distinguish our wants from our needs. That goes back to our social media thing, right? Because it's very easy to say, "Oh, well, I need this cool, bright, shiny new thing." No, you don't. You have last year's version of it. You don't need this year's iPhone. It does maybe one thing that your iPhone from last year didn't do. You don't have to put yourself in debt to get this year's iPhone, right? Spending money diminishes your wealth, right? If your goal is the accrual of wealth and the accumulation of money, every dollar you spend is a dollar that you don't have anymore. This is a very basic concept, but it's also a concept that isn't innate, right? It's not something that you're born knowing. And also, budgeting grants you a sense of control over your finances because then it's not just like, oh, well, I don't know what fresh barrier is going to pop up or challenge and whether I'm going to be able to pay for it. No, I thought ahead throughout the month about the things that I know that I'm going to have to spend. And then I have this little bit of money set aside that I've been saving because of our saving and investing for a rainy day, for the thing that might happen, for when I need new brakes, for when the furnace stops working or something like that. So those are our concepts. And our financial literacy toolkit gives you the financial literacy messaging um, tool that helps you deliver these messages to your youth. So let's talk about how we tie our financial literacy messages to academic standards, because financial literacy doesn't have to be a standalone message or activity. You can also incorporate it into what you're already doing. In fact, I would encourage you to lean more towards that than trying to make it a standalone financial literacy block. Whether it's math, ELA, social studies, some other learning, right? There are ways in which we can bake this financial literacy into those activities. So let's take a moment to share in the chat because I've been doing a lot of talking. I'd like to hear from you. What's something you're already doing in your program, some activity that you can incorporate financial literacy into? And then we'll talk about what tools you might have to support that integration, right? And there are a ton of different ways that we can do this across our academic disciplines. I also want to encourage you to think about fun ways to do it, right? Because financial literacy can feel very dry, which is why I encourage you to not make it its own individual block. Instead, just like, inform the activities you're already doing with it. Oh, we have a classroom reward store. Yeah, I honestly I love a good positive behavior reinforcement system with some money and some rewards, some tiered rewards maybe. I also love, like we were talking about with our North Carolina example, I love that there are individual things you can buy, but there are also group things that we can all contribute to, right? Because that's something that I think that we don't think about a lot when it comes to finances because we think about it as such a deeply personal thing. A cooking club. Yes, right? So not only are we like we're hitting our STEM and our math stuff where we're like doing our percentages for the recipes, but we're also pricing out how much it costs to like actually make this recipe. And then how much would it cost to make it at scale, right? That's something that restaurants have to think about every day. Children earn money for jobs, participation during doing kind deeds. Yep. And children can purchase alternative snack. That's really cool. Because I mean, listen, I'm food motivated as an adult. So like children, we know how food motivated they are. The fact that I can buy a special snack because of the awesome things that I've saved up, because of the kindness that I've shown, that's incredible. And that's a sort of holistic support for your program. We can add financial literacy when discussing baby basic supplies for new parents. Yes, yes. And I do want to talk about, just briefly here, mention how these things that we're talking about, don't just use them to infuse the activities you're doing with your students, use them to infuse your family engagement activities. Because there are plenty of parents in your families that might not know some of these core concepts, and they might be embarrassed to try to find that out on their own. So if we just hold a big family engagement night that talks about financial literacy and it's targeted towards our youth, but is still accessible for our adults, that can help in that way in a really impactful way. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, a bank representative come and present? Yes, right? Come and talk about all the cool stuff and like the ways that we can save in a fun way. And hey, maybe they'll bring some of those fun bank lollipops too, which I always take two of, even though I'm not sure that I should. But hey, listen, I think it's okay. Um, I'm in a state network and we have financial literacy PD that we offer to support the programs in the state. That's awesome, right? So we have a very intentional financial literacy design that we're then rolling out to our staff. So we have a unified message. I like that a lot. Um, Janelle says they always want a different stack not put out that day, right? Yeah, okay. Right. So, I mean, honestly, that's a real conversation I've had in program where you're like, okay, well, I know that you would like me to be able to offer you all the things all the time. Let's talk about why we can't do that, right? And there was one time where I literally pulled out the sheet that I had to use to order snacks and be like, this is how we're doing it. Let's all sit down and do it together so that we see how the sausage is made and why I can't just give you every flavor of Sun Chip every day, right? Um, I let our students pick out supplies for programs using the allocated budget for the month. So literally the thing that I just said, I should have just read the next response because that's awesome. And that also really um just for a moment, it also helps to address student voice and choice too. So like they are more engaged with your program because they're part of the process that is developing your program because they're helping to buy the materials or whatever. College and careers, right? The cost of college versus vocational school or certification program. Man, I wish more programs would do that, and I wish they would start doing it earlier because vocational schools are such a powerful resource that we have, and I feel like they have a stigma and they're undersold, and but they are so supportive, and that comes from like I had the opportunity to teach for a long time at a technical school, and I saw just how impactful that could be. Man, there's a lot of really great feedback in here. I want to do a sip and shop at the end of the program, allowing parents to bring their own crack. Yeah, I love that, right? That'll definitely get some family engagement into, right?
Mhm.
So, we have our academic standard, our tool using academic standards to incorporate financial literacy, right? Um, it gives you concrete cross-disciplinary examples of how to do this. So for math, for example, it gives you ideas like using decimals and percentages to calculate interest and using graphs to interpret financial information. For English, it'll do things like suggest writing short and long-term financial goals, right? What do I want to do this month? What do I want to do this year? Things like that. Developing a business plan. Um, or writing a proposal for a grant or a loan. Those developing business plan things, they seem silly until you think about all the cool crafty things that youth do that they could then turn into like little cottage industries. Um, for social studies and economics, studying inflation, right? Historic things like recession, talking about risk and scarcity and how global events affect the economy, which affects us and our spending, right? And for our family and consumer sciences, it highlights, creating a household budget, things like that. How do we plan for ahead for a large purchase? As program leaders, you can use this tool two ways, right? First, use it with your planning. Um, Choose one financial concept, connect it to an academic area that's already present in your schedule, or you could use it in connection with your existing financial literacy curriculum. Like somebody shouted out in the chat, they have PD already around financial literacy. So you can use this to support those skills that your students are currently learning and sort of incorporate them into other activities and subject areas. So, all that being said, we're going to take a quick poll before we move forward. This is a sort of choose your own adventure moment, right? Because in a little bit, we're going to be doing an activity and we're going to decide now which academic standards we're going to focus on for that activity. So we're going to share a poll and we would like you to just tell us what academic standard, what area of focus you would like to use moving forward for the rest of our presentation as for our examples.
We'll have to put this in the chat, Chaz.
Oh, sorry. All right. So, um, are we focusing on math, English language arts, social studies, economics, or family and consumer sciences? Pick which area of focus you would like, and we will use it for our examples moving forward for the rest of our time together. Seen a lot of math already. Seen a lot of family and consumer sciences. All right, all right. Math, math, math.
Lots of math.
Yeah, lots of math. I get that. I get that. As a former English teacher, I certainly understand that. All right, so it looks like we're skewing pretty heavily already towards math and family and consumer sciences. So let's use that for the rest of our working time together. Maybe we'll have some more time and we'll see what we can do if we can get like a third example in here. So you guys selected math. Um, and so now we're going to talk about incorporating that academic area and infusing financial literacy with it, right? So right now, what I'd like you to do is ask yourself two questions and then respond in the chat, right? Through the lens of math, we're talking about what do we hope to teach your students and what outcome do you hope to have with your students after you deliver this instruction? So with math in mind, I'd like you to write your responses in the chat. So we're talking about what we want to teach our students regarding math and financial literacy and what outcome we hope will be achieved with that. Basic math skills. Okay. Okay. Listen, being able to do that quick mental math is something, right? And it's a skill. It's one that has to be developed. Absolutely. Real budgeting skills. I mean, oh, and the how to, yes, and the how to break it down in budget, right? Because yeah, it's all well and good to say, well, you should have a budget. What does that look like, right? Because nobody's born knowing how to make a budget. Basic skills on saving, investing, and budgeting and understanding debit and credit. All right, so I very much like this basic math skills, so they're able to add bills. I like that. Definitely pull that one. I hope to teach students that math is a tool that will help them understand what the numbers mean in real life. Right. So the real application of math, right? And honestly, I think financial literacy is a great place to do that. Because it really shows you what the actual impact on math in your day-to-day life. And then budgeting. So when they have limited bills at this point in life, since they're in high school, yeah, that's it, right? Starting a budget then, when you have very few bills, I feel like is a lot easier than being like, all right, well, now I have to do my entire life and budget all of this stuff too. Basic math skills, so knowing how much change you get back from making a purchase. That's a huge one, right? I can't tell you how many times I've been like two or three people back in line and somebody gets change back and they're like looking at it in their hand trying to figure out whether they got the right change. The difference
Or
between
how many people, Chaz, are going to be cashiers and have to know how to give that change back, you know?
seriously, that's a quality first time job, like like a entry level job, and being able to do that quick mental math is the difference between an annoyed customer and a happy customer, right?
Right.
All right, so I think we've captured a couple really great outcomes that we can talk about as we move forward, right? So now that you've called these things out, I want you to think just for a moment back to the financial messages that we were just talking about and what key financial messages can support these lessons, right? And then I want you to think about how you can integrate these lessons into what you're already doing in your program. Because we have great goals, like some great outcomes that we'd like. We know what the message and the key, financial concepts that we want are. So then how do we then integrate that into the math education that we're already doing? Um, so let's go ahead and talk about that, right? Let's dive into making some really impactful smart goals here. Um, so some of the answers that we had in chat, we're going to use a couple of the answers that we had from our chat. So we have our basic math skills, right? So knowing how to, how much change we're getting back, right? Making sure that we understand, like, basic computation, things of that nature. What we want to do is now turn this into a SMART goal, right? So our SMART goals are specific, so they're clear and defined, right? It's a very specific thing that we're talking about, that we're tracking, and then measurable, right? So there is a very clear and distinct way to track the progress of that goal. It's a realistic and attainable goal, and it's relevant, right? It makes sense with our youth and the context that we're working with. And then it's time bound, right? There is a clear beginning and end to what we're doing. So, let's go ahead and I'm going to walk through the basic math skills one, and then I'd like us all to build the budgeting one in chat here, right? So it could be, so for our basic math skills one, it could be by the end of, a 3 week period, 75% of my participating middle school students will demonstrate an improvement in of you know maybe like 5 percentage points in the beginning benchmark activity that we did to measure math skills when we're doing you know setting up credit and debit and going over that lesson. So what would so that goal, right? It gives us it's specific because we have a specific percentage of people that we want to be able to achieve the outcome. It's measurable because we have a certain percentage point that we would like to see them increase. It's achievable because we're not setting something where it's like, I want everybody, 100% of people to improve to get 100% on the benchmark, right? It's reasonable. It's something that they can actually do. It's relevant because this is a skill that we already know is necessary for them and we've identified that is a need for our youth. And then it's time bound, right? Because we tied it to a 3 week time frame. So by the end of those 3 weeks, we get to stop, evaluate, and see how successful we are. So now we're all going to build a SMART goal for budgeting, right? So our outcome for budgeting is, being able to create a household budget, right? Um, what could let's walk through specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, right? So what do we think? Remember, our specific, when we start, that's a um, specific and defined number of people, percentage or what have you, of our youth that we would like to achieve the outcome. And then we need to make sure that we're measuring this outcome, right? So how do we know that students are better at budgeting than they were before we started this activity? And it's achievable, right? So we're not expecting all of our students to be absolute budget wizards or financial czars by the end of this, right? It's something that we know they can do. And then it's relevant to them, right? So why is this important to them? And then it's time bound. How long are we going to take to actually measure this goal and figure out whether progress is being made? So while you guys think about walking through and developing the budgeting SMART goal, I'll give you guys one more. Oh, hold on. People are already coming in. See that? Giving you thinking time. You guys are thinking faster than I think you are. At least 80% of our student population will be able to improve their personal budget over a said period of time. Now, I'm going to challenge you to make that said period of time a specific one, right? So, maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a month, something like that, right? And then we can add the period of time what that would look like later, right? Depending on the group. Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. And when we're looking at what the actual achievable goal is here, what does it look like when they improve their personal budget? That's something that we need to look at for that particular SMART goal, right? Because how do we measure what improvement in their personal budget is over that period of time? So Deanna says 90% of my students will understand how a budget applies to a cooking club for planning meals during the semester. It's measurable because each student is going to present a budget for measuring progress. It's achievable because full 18 weeks is definitely realistic and attainable period of time to give them to do these things. It's relevant because it already aligns with the math and financial literacy goals that we have. And our time period is the one semester that we're doing. Awesome. That's a great example of, those are both great examples of SMART goals that are taking the key message from financial literacy, linking it with an academic outcome, and then infusing it into a activity that we're already doing. Again, nobody's telling you to reinvent the wheel. We're just telling you to add one or two more spokes to the wheels you're already using, right? Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. So now let's talk about evaluating financial literacy resources because the questions that we've asked you and the steps that we've just completed, they come from a toolkit that we have, or a tool within our toolkit that we have called Evaluating Financial Literacy Resources. So this tool is a planner that helps you develop SMART goals and a checklist for reviewing activities, lessons, and curricula across four dimensions. Those four dimensions being content, utility, quality, and efficacy. So we'll take a closer look at those four different criteria in a moment. I just wanted to introduce this toolkit to you and make sure that you realize that it is a valuable tool when it comes to developing those SMART goals. Because again, doing those SMART goals can be a little tricky. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that. All right. So let's talk about vetting external curriculum. So when you're considering any outside curriculum, whether it's a free worksheet, polish unit, partner provided lessons, you don't have to just rely on your gut, right? The tool that we just showed you helps you gives you a framework for evaluating those things. So content asks whether the material covers the knowledge and skills that you actually want your youth to learn, right? Is this relevant to what I want them to be learning? Utility asks them whether the material supports the facilitator in delivering that content. So is this actually useful? The content might be great, but is it useful in my context, right? Quality checks that the materials are accurate, up to date, objective, which is very important, and designed in an appealing way. And then efficacy talks about whether the curriculum can produce the results that it actually claims to, right? Is it actually going to do what it says on the tin? What makes this particularly helpful for program directors and site coordinators is that it gives you consistency, right? Across multiple sites with different staff, they can use the same checklist and they can arrive at comparable decisions. After you tally the results, the tool supports a clear overall determination using a rating scale, right? So it gives you a very clear and objective rating. The goal isn't to reject everything. It's just to decide, do we adopt it as it is? Do we adapt it? Or do we decline based on the transparent criteria, right? All right. So those are our four dimensions. So let's take a look at an external curriculum. So we're going to start by looking at a curriculum connected to math because that was our, big flagged topic, right? So what we're going to do, excuse me, what we're going to do is we're going to read the scenario that pops up, and then we're going to look at a poll, and then we're going to determine whether it meets each one of these dimensions, whether it is, appropriate content, whether it is something that can be useful for us in our current capacity, whether it's something that is quality content, and whether it's something that achieves the goal that it says that it's going to do. All right, let's go ahead and look at math. So we have a math curriculum integrates financial literacy by having students run a mock store and calculate discounts, compare prices, and analyze simple interest using real-world examples. Hands-on stations include budgeting puzzles and digital practice. The curriculum emphasizes mental math, but offers no supports for students missing foundational math skills. It claims to increase confidence in real-life money math. All right, let's launch our poll. So what do we think? We're evaluating across those four areas, right? Is it the content that we're looking for financial literacy? Is it something that can actually be used in our programs with our staff? Is it a good high quality resource? And is it going to be effective in doing the thing that it says it's going to do? All right, we've got our responses coming in already. See, at first we were all one way on each answer, but now I'm getting there's a little pushback on each. This is interesting. I like this. I like the internal conflict we've got going on here. All right. So let's go ahead and end that one. Now let's take a look. Let's walk through it real quick. So content. I mean, I feel like the content in this seems really fun and it seems like it's engaging and it seems like it's going to address financial literacy, right? That's awesome. Utility. I wonder a little bit about how useful it can be for our frontline staff because there are no baked in supports for those missing foundational math skills. So if our frontline staff don't have the capacity to support those and train those skills up, there's nothing baked into this curriculum to help them deliver that instruction. So I think that might be a slight area of weakness here. Um, Quality, I mean, it seems like the hands-on stations, the budgeting puzzles, that seems good, but I would say the quality does suffer because we're not providing enough academic supports here. And I think that it could be effective with our students who aren't struggling with foundational math skills, like the ones that are already feel like they're on track. I think it could be very helpful for them. Our other youth, they might need some additional scaffolding or support. All right, great. So that is a great example of how we use the tool that we just introduced to you to break down a curriculum and then determine whether or not that thing is actually helpful for you. Um, in the interest of time, I think that we'll just do the one scenario and then we're going to go ahead and move on. So let's go ahead and talk about financial literacy bingo. So in the toolkit today, we've talked about a lot of different things. There's also a series of ready to use activities, right? Because sure, all of this theory, all these concepts, they're great, but what do you go do tomorrow in program? Here's what you do tomorrow in program, right? This is one of your highest engagement per minute tools. The financial
Mm-hmm.
literacy bingo game includes Cue cards, bingo boards, and some really clear directions. All you got to do is print and cut the definition cue cards and boards. You give each student a board and a marker. You draw the cue card, and then we read definitions aloud. And we just keep going until somebody says bingo, right? So this matters because games help students work with newer abstract concepts. Um, and they typically increase engagement, right? I mean, even me, I'm just a gamer by nature, but like if you gamify something, it's going to increase my engagement in it, even if it's something that I might not particularly be interested in. For you guys, the out of school time leaders, right? The benefit is that staff don't need to lecture. Instead, students learn these terms through really repeated exposure and those quick wins that we know really keep our youth engaged. It also works really well for family nights because adults can play alongside youth without feeling like, they're put on the spot or tested. A really strong facilitation strategy that I like to give people, um, that you can use alongside the game is like just really quick 10-second real life connections after each term where you say, all right, well, where might this word show up in your day-to-day life? That that just quick little move turns what is a vocabulary lesson into practical literacy, which I'm huge on because again, English teacher. So this tool includes a bonus option once students know the terms where they can listen during another activity. It's something like, that once they're familiar with the terms, you can just use it as sort of a transition time thing. So might be getting in line and we do some sort of quizzing on terms, things like that, right? Just a fun redirect and a different way to do it once they've gotten used to the terms. So we're going to do just a couple quick rounds of bingo, right? So I'm going to read a definition, and then you're going to share the term in the chat that fits with the definition. So here we go. First definition: the price associated with using someone else's money. Banks pay it to savers and charge it to borrowers. So share in the chat what term that is. Oh, there we go. That is our interest, right? No scarier force in the world than compound interest, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So go ahead,
Some
John.
folks are answering the host and panelists, just so you know. We have,
Oh, yeah. I just realized
and
that. Yeah. Because I'm sitting there calling out responses and people are like, wait, what? There's nothing in the chat. Yeah, that would be why. Yeah.
so that's, yeah. So throughout all of today, you might be surprised if we're talking about what we're seeing in the chat, but the option to send just to hosts and panelists. So you might not have seen that, but yeah, we have a bunch of people saying interest. So congratulations to those folks.
Awesome. All right. So let's do one more, right? A document used to plan and track the flow of money coming in and going out for a specific project or overall finances. There we go. Budget. Perfect. Again, this is a fun thing that you can do during a family engagement night too. If you're working in cross grade groups, you can ask your older kids to explain to the younger ones in kid-friendly language, right? If for some reason you might have low participation in this, give them two options and just ask students to choose, right? They don't have to just like pick it out of thin air. You can give them a choice, give them that scaffolding. The goal isn't just the definitions. It's it's to be comfortable with the terms that students are going to see over and over in real life. So they're more likely to pause and ask questions rather than just agree to something because they don't know what somebody's talking about and they don't want to look dumb. Let's talk about another really cool activity that you can do with your youth.
I have one, Chaz. Let me tell you about it.
Tell me about
it. And actually, I see our clock. We're having so much fun here. The clock is ticking, and I do want to get to Emily. So I am going to kind of feed through actually 3 different resources that you guys can use. And I know that I'm going to be very brief on these, but we're going to give you all the information you need. So in the chat, I've just put the link to the FDIC Reality Fair. And this is a high impact strategy that you can use either as a special event or a scaled down simulation in regular programming, a reality fair. So you can have it as a big thing where guests come to also participate, or like I said, just with the young people. So each student receives a participant profile with details like profession, income, savings, and student debt, along with a spending and saving plan. And that's their budget workshop for the event. And students fill in details as they move through the fair. Students visit booths, and there are 12 booths that are laid out in this reality fair simulation. And with the exception of housing, students can visit the booths in any order. They have to visit housing part 1 before housing part 2, which is housing part 1 is renting, and then housing part 2 is buying, choosing a home. So they get to record costs and decisions and their plans and check totals along the way. And then they close with a reflection about what they've learned. So the guide is full of models and idea. They suggest about a 3-hour time frame with the rotations and everything. You can scale it. You can have a mini fair with fewer booths. You can use multiple days. So we really think that this is a great resource. So take a look at that when you have a chance. And then there's a financial literacy social media campaign. So in the financial literacy guide, we've set up some things that you can use on social media, whether you're using the Facebook or the Instagram or whatever. We give you the little blurbs to post to your constituents. So if you have a group, a parent group, a student group, you can highlight these ready-made posts, and you can also customize them too. So this is a really good thing that you could use. And so that's another resource. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about is Thinking Money for Kids. And this is what I consider the treasure trove, if you will, of what you can use. And let me just get you the link here. There you go. So this is ALA's Thinking Money for Kids program page. And there are 2 major resource pathways that you can pull OST things into this. You'll notice as you read through it, it's designed for libraries, but it really adapts to the 21st century settings. And most of it is free and ready to use. So there's a Thinking Money for Kids program kits that you might want to use. There's programs that you can model. There's a library partnership opportunity, and there's support materials as well that they talk about. There is a whole section on support, a whole section on program kits, and then there's also some games. When you go to the Thinking for Kids page, there's a whole bunch of games that you can use for young people of different ages. And please check that out. In the interest of time, I'm not going to do that now. So we can find out a little bit of our guest spotlight, where Emily Rice is joining us live, and she'll share how financial literacy can be integrated into real 21st century community learning center programming, what it looks like on the ground, what challenges come up, and what strategies help. Emily holds a degree in communications from the University of Tampa and is passionate about working in the nonprofit sector. Originally from a small town outside of Worcester, Massachusetts, Emily's career has been driven by her goal to make a positive impact through meaningful community work. In her free time, she enjoys taking walks with her dog, Winston, and exploring her interest in photography. So as we listen to Emily, pay attention to practical implementation details she gives, how they schedule activities, how they build staff comfort, how they keep learning youth-centered, and how they involve families. Also listen for sustainability moves, how they select resources, where they use partners, and how they ensure consistency across sites. Emily, thanks for being with us. We're excited to learn from your experience. And If participants have questions, please put them in the chat. But Emily, we're going to guide the conversation with a few short questions. So share what you think is most useful for program leaders trying to implement financial literacy across multiple sites. So tell us about yourself and your work and your program. We'll start there.
Yeah, like I said, I'm Emily Rice from the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Tampa Bay. I've been with the movement for 4 years now, and I've been on a 21st grant for over 3 years of that. So I've been living, breathing 21st century for a lot of my career here. So it's been fun and it's been a treat. But our overall mission at Boys and Girls Club is to prepare youth and young adults to be ready for college, career, and life, which perfectly ties into financial literacy, and trying to, get kids ready for beyond and outside of it. So we have about 64 sites in 3 different counties right now. And out of the 64, we have 7 dedicated 21st sites right now. So it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. How are you building financial literacy into the program?
Yeah, so we have great Boys and Girls Club of America programming, which we're very fortunate to have be a national organization. One of those programs that we implement day to day is called Money Matters, and that curriculum is in partnership and sponsored by the Charles Schwab Foundation. So we got some experts, we got great knowledge that are developing curriculum, and I believe Charles Schwab Foundation has been partnered with Boys and Girls Club of America for over 20 years now, so since 2004, so it's been a long relationship. But we use our Money Matters curriculum as a foundation to teach our financial literacy. Some of the building blocks and kind of talking points for Money Matters is building wealth education, exploring your dreams, and budgeting hacks, and getting invested, which investing is, I should have started 5 years ago. So to start young is so important. But with our Money Matters curriculum, it gives us a great framework. And from there, our staff can embed financial literacy in our day-to-day programming. It doesn't always have to be Money Matters. It can be our different programming, which is our Power Hour, which is homework help, our tutoring help, and other programs such as Career Exploration or Torch Club. But we try to be hands-on with our programming, and we've learned a lot of what we've kind of talked about this whole time is implementing hands-on activities, whether that's the club stores using club bucks for positive behavior and academic effort, showing that they to make real decisions and whether to spend and save. We also focus on like what we've talked about of the needs versus the wants, and just introducing business ideas or that entrepreneurship is a cool avenue to go on. So definitely utilizing our curriculum, but making it hands-on and interactive is a focus of how we build financial literacy in our programming.
And how do you get families involved in being supportive of these activities?
So like for 21st century, we love our parent engagement. We love not only trying to engage the members, but a big aspect of this grant is engaging with the parents. So we have our parent nights, and we all know that it needs to be meaningful. We can't just hang out and talk about what's going on. So, which, yes, we can talk about going on, but there needs to be a literacy aspect of those nights. So out of the required 21st parent nights, I make sure that we implement at least one financial literacy themed parent night. So we've had a lot of engagement, inviting partners such as local community colleges. And I was really impressed with a resource night at the library that the library talked about all resources that are in the community, a safe place to get the information and feel comfortable about knowing where to go if there's questions about financial literacy, but also just a great resource for the community. So we've seen great parent engagement with providing the good resources and the good facts. Yeah.
Cool. And what impacts have you seen with the young people? Have they, some of them been jazzed about some things?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact for what all that we're doing is seeing what we're doing at the club and seeing it outside of the club too, how kids are implementing what they're learning in our out of school times and how it can impact out of school time. So we've learned, and kids aren't shy. So they'll tell us all about, oh, I went to the grocery store and I saw this price, but then I saw this one that was a little bit less. And I said, that's a better deal. So it's really cool to see the activities that we're doing, and it's clicking, and it's giving a little insight of the real world scenarios. So it's really cool to see the impact of what we're doing day to day and how it is transforming out of school time too. So
very cool. Were there any bumps in the road? Anything? Any pointers you have for people starting up what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, we face challenges every day. It's life, and it's the beauty of nonprofits as well. So I think a big challenge is student engagement, which working with middle school, high schools, it's hard to get engaging at that age. It's hard to impress a middle schooler these days, or any day. So it's really trying to be creative and seeing what a child is interested in and being flexible of, okay, well, maybe that's not working, but let me be creative and interactive and try to grasp the entertainment of the activity. And I think it's really also making the activities relatable. We have this curriculum on paper, but what is relatable to my students, and what is relatable to one site might be different than another site. So it's making it their own, and really getting the buy-in from the staff as well to know their members and to know what is cool right now, which what's cool with the kids changes frequently. So it's there's going to be challenges, whether it's time that we our out of school time is limited, so it's whatever the bell schedule is, and then we're off to the races as soon as programming starts. So it's utilizing the time that we have in an impactful way, and to be creative with all the barriers and the challenges. And challenges make things fun in the sense that we'll laugh about them later, but it gives a little pizzazz to the day. And when we overcome challenges, it's pretty special.
Right. Good. Good. Deanna is asking, do you provide incentives to parents to come to parent nights? Why do families come to your...
It's a tricky thing. We do what we can with what we're allowed to purchase through the grant, but we also recently have merged as an organization. So I have a lot more teams that I can utilize. So now there is a food program. So we can utilize our great teams to kind of pick up where we can't spend with the grant, which hasn't always been the case. But for now, when we are a bigger team, we have a little bit more inside resources that we can use. So it is very tricky to get parent engagement. And I full on understand that the last thing I want to do after work is do anything else. So it's a challenge, and it's very fun to see the creative ways that we can grab the attention and say, hey, help, you can't see the hour, half an hour or a little bit, I just want you to get the meat and potatoes of this, and then you can go on your way. So it's hard when we can't entice too much, but it's also the 21st program is a really cool program that I think if parents are on board and they have the buy-in, we're seeing that they will come, they will stay, and they're intrigued to know what the kids are learning as well. So it is a difficult ask, but it is that's another challenge. So it's
right.
Yeah.
I know you said that every program site is a little different, but is there a particular activity that has been a real success that the young people flock to and are excited about when they're leaving the day that you do it, or anything that comes to mind as far as something that seems to be engaging today?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it changes by the day, but I've heard we've had great success with the club store and the club bucks of earning club bucks with behavior, attendance, and participation. You start to notice kids are saying, "Oh, I want a club buck. Oh, I want more club bucks than this kid." So behavior starts to get better, and attendance starts to get better, and you're noticing, oh, this is a pretty cool thing that we're going doing. But we've also done activities where which is pretty real world scenario of my day to day of I have this budget for this program. We only have $100 to last us a whole year. How are you gonna buy pencils, papers for your art project for 20 kids? So it's fun to see the kids kind of realize, oh, money's not money doesn't grow on trees. We have a limited resource. I should also take care of these scissors and not break them because man, I don't have that in my budget. So it's cool to see things click. And I think kids like disguise learning as well. So if we can say, hey, we're running a restaurant today, you have this budget. What does it take to have the electric, the water, the plates? Do we have room for if plates break? And just to get the gears running, and get the creative juices going. So it's
Right.
yeah, good
Cool.
engagement, creativity.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for spending some time with us and letting me pick your brain. I don't have any real dollars to give you, but if our participants can send you some reactions on the Zoom thing, we're filling you with lots of thank yous and loves and cheer. So thanks for that. And I'm going to turn this back to Chaz.
All right. So we've talked about a whole lot of things, and the question can be, well, where do I start? Well, the most important thing you can do to act on what you've heard here today is you can explore the toolkit that we've shared with you um, on your own. There's a lot of stuff there. Don't worry, there are usage guides, so you don't have to get intimidated about anything. Also, all of our toolkits are also available as Word documents, so you can modify them very easily for your individual programs, which is great. I also want to encourage you to take some time to write a SMART goal, like we practiced earlier, about incorporating financial literacy into an aspect of your program. That key messages tool that we shared earlier could also be a great way to guide what that goal is and figure out what outcomes you want and how to target those and what that messaging should sound like. I also want to encourage you to engage your families by not just using these things in activities during out of school time, like I was saying, but also during your family engagement nights. Um, Great way to develop and deepen that connection with your families. But also engage your partners. Kind of like Emily was talking about, and Deanna was alluding to earlier, there are some some very strict limitations about what we can spend funds on when it comes to our grant. But our partners can help us supplement the things that we can't spend our grant money on so that we can still provide those things, but we have to go and ask them and let them know, right? Um, so ways to do that have been peppered throughout the conversation, but I would encourage you to take a look at the social media post and how to write one, because in this day and age, we know just how impactful is social media appeal can be. So thank you guys for joining us for our learning. I want to tell you that our learning doesn't stop here, right? The learning never stops here with NTAC. So I want to encourage you to visit our knowledge network, which is an awesome collaborative talking about social media. It's adjacent, right? It's a closed network for our out of school time 21st CCLC professionals, all of whom can share skills, knowledge, cool activities, ideas, maybe pain points, and we can talk collaboratively about how to address those things, right? I highly recommend you check it out. It's on our NTAC website, and if you have an issue logging into that or getting signed up for it, you just let us know and we'll help you out. In addition to that, we have our learning management system, which has a number of different courses and they're constantly being added to. So There are courses for all types of topics that you might want to support your staff in learning. These are courses that you could take yourself, but they're also courses that you could assign your staff to coach up these skills that you might not have the time to do in, your typical staff meeting or what have you. I also want to close by pointing out how you can get in touch with us because there were some times during the chat in the chat where I was mentioning that you could reach out to us to clarify some things, or even if you just want to reach out to us for additional training, technical assistance, capacity building, coaching, any of that. You do all of that through our email here at info@21stcclcntac.org, and you could request technical assistance through the 21st CCLC NTAC site. So I encourage you to use both to take advantage of us as a free resource to help you support your students in their continuing quest for financial literacy and independence. So go ahead and please fill out that feedback form that we've dropped in the chat there, because that's our continuous improvement cycle. It lets us know how we're doing and how we can get better. Um, so the resources are all available on the 21st CCLC NTAC site, Lisa. We can make sure that we get you a link to all of those things if you want, or you can just reach out through the email that we were just talking about, and we can make sure that we get you copies of anything that you need directly. So I do want to thank all of you for joining us, and I want to just encourage you to keep trying to find ways to infuse financial literacy into the things that we do with our youth, whether that's activities and school time programs or just other times that we're talking. Anytime we're interacting with our youth, right? So thank you all, and I really hope you all have a great day. John, Emily, thank you guys so much for being here with me.